Welcome to the first edition of the KC Realtor Roundtable. My name is Marck, and I am your host. You know, this topic and show is all about bridging the gap between realtors and investor community. You know, I feel like for too long, these communities have kind of almost competed or at least not really collaborated together. And we're here today and ongoing to talk more about how we continue to bridge that gap and work together. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Stephen May and by Anita. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So for perspective, I'm a real estate investor first and foremost, but I do have my broker license. And it's been probably 20 years that I've been investing, but it was always my thought process that the investing world and the realtor world got together. So I got my license very early on in my investing career. I think most people don't become an investor first and a broker second. It's normally the other way around. Stephen, did you get your license first or did you start investing in real estate first?
Yeah, no, I think you're super accurate with people getting their license first and then investing. For me, I had bought a handful of single families and then got licensed. I was actually a registered nurse in my previous life.
Okay.
So I was buying a couple single families while doing that because I just was wanting to create wealth and passive income. And then for me, you know, I thought about getting my license just to save on commissions myself. And now it's kind of flourished and scaled up to me doing it full time.
And you're focused primarily on the investor sales side?
Yeah, almost 100% investors. I would say the large majority of that is out-of-state investors just looking to place capital in a Midwest city. But yeah, primarily investors.
And Anita, fair to say the opposite for you? You intentionally went into the realtor residential listing side right off the bat, right?
Right off the bat, yeah.
And 2001, so a lot of experience, hundreds of transactions under the belt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've dibbled, and I do help investors, but not nearly as what you're doing. But yeah.
I love, you always wear yellow, you radiate joy. I've seen a lot of your content on social, which is why we kind of plucked you to come with us today. Tell us a little bit about branding and social media. How have you made a push? Because it seems like, well, clearly anytime someone rises to the top, it looks very unintentional, but I know there's a lot of intention behind it. Tell us a little bit about your commitment to building a social media platform.
Well, it took a while. It took several years, I think, in the process of really trying to figure out what my brand was. There was a lot of self-reflection. And so it started out with just what I love, and I love the color yellow, and people around me just know me for the color yellow. I would start to post things about yellow and start to, have my kids scream out yellow whenever we would see a yellow fire hydrant or a yellow car or whatever. And people just started getting to know me, and I would start getting messages like, oh, Anita, I saw this yellow something or other, and now every single time I think of yellow, I think of you. And when that started processing, I was really thinking, well, how can I use this as my brand? Well, okay, we're in Kansas City, and I just started building on that, and then I came up with Yellow Brick Group, and tied that to the Wizard of Oz because there's no place like home. And it just started building, and it's kind of one of those things where you have to really start, I think, with what you love or what people know you by, and then build on that. And I just happened to love a really fantastic color, and now it's kind of building. So I try and put that into everything I do.
Kansas City Realtors earn a quick 5% commission by referring either MLS or off-market properties that look like this to SBD Housing. For over 20 years, we have solved realtors' problems by getting rid of the major repairs or needing a quick sale. Those distressed properties, we can handle all of them. Go to sbdrealtor.com for more information. That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Stephen, pivoting a little bit about talking to Kansas City Realtors, what are you seeing? You work with investors from all over the country. How are you seeing Kansas City perceived in their eyes, and what are you seeing as movements within the Kansas City marketplace?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things people look and find the Kansas City market is for the cash flow, right? It's that standard Midwest market. A lot of these investors are coastal, so New Jersey, New York, California. I have a large group in Hawaii. And just when they put things into perspective, they're right, it's very unaffordable there. The numbers are hard to make work to cash flow at all. So they come to Kansas City, they just see it as a very low barrier of entry, right? I mean, you could buy a small multifamily apartment complex for the same price as, a 2-bed, 1-bath condo there. So I think that's what's perceived most by the out-of-state investing clientele is just the cash flow. And so just parking some capital here in that regard. So I think that's what most people find. I think with the growth of podcast and like sources like Bigger Pockets, Kansas City's definitely been highlighted as a solid cash flow market. Of course, we have a ton of development going on here, great population growth, great rent growth. So I think that draws their attention as well.
Anita, what about you when you were working? Well, first of all, give us a little perspective. Do you work with, I know most of your activity clearly is residential listing, but do you work with and have you worked with investor clientele before?
I have, yes. The thing that I like about investors is they're repetitive. They are very loyal. And so I've had investors buy 3 or 4 properties a year, and they just don't want to mess with all of the paperwork, and they don't want to mess with, all of the ins and outs of stuff, like you understand. And so I have enjoyed the relationships that I've built with those investors, but primarily it's with homeowners or residential or real estate.
That's one of the biggest points I think that some would overlook is I feel like, and I'd love to get you guys' perspective both, but I feel like sometimes realtors get maybe frustrated with investors because they're a little bit more picky and they want to go low, you want to put in a low ball offer, or maybe you're over exaggerating the repairs, or you're unrealistic and you're going to offend the seller, because it is very different than a residential real estate transaction. Have you found that with your investor clientele, that the benefits of getting a repeat customer that's going to buy and buy and buy outweigh some of the frustrations?
So I think it depends, right? The thing that probably frustrates me and some of my colleagues from a standpoint of the investor relationship is I don't think that investors who don't have their real estate license or don't do it, I think that they can, not all, but can take advantage of what the value of a realtor. So I've had investors will come and say, hey, I know that you're a realtor, and can you do all of these steps for me? And, oh, by the way, can you do it for a deep discount and try and take that percentage of what we work for? And yet they will want 30 to 40% of the profit. And so, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it can cause a level of perception that investors don't see the value in a realtor.
That is such an astute point that you're making. And I think that I've even been guilty when I was first getting started before I got my license, it's like, hey, can you give me your access code? Let me go. I'm sure every realtor is going to be like, oh yeah, I've been asked for my MLS access code before. Just let me go surf the web. You really don't do anything. I can find the properties myself. And I think that undermines the value. And I think what you're talking about is the reason for this show, the roundtable, is there is a lack of trust and respect between the two communities. And what you're hitting at is a very real thing. Have you found something similar, Steve?
Yeah, it's funny when I think about it, because for me, I've worked with a handful of owner occupants, and for me, it's almost on the contrary, right? I would walk through these properties, show a handful on the weekends to them. And, they're critiquing things that some of my investors wouldn't even think about, right? The size of the rooms, the amenities it has, the size of the backyard. Whereas my investing clientele, and just with my background of being able to underwrite and analyze deals from my own experience, I think that's why I've done well in the investing community, is because usually, we're taking a preliminary standpoint of looking at the deal before we go out and show it and do a video walkthrough to that degree. But for my investors, it's just a numbers game, right? What are the comps? What's the market rent? What's it renting for now? Digging into the numbers and just making it work, right? If they need to do a rehab, we dig into those numbers. It's for me and for them, it seems to just be more of a numbers game. Whereas in the owner-occupant world, at least from my experience, it was very subjective of, we want to change this, that, and are we comfortable living here? So, thoughts?
I think it's really neat, this opposite side of it. I think for me, too, one of the things that maybe causes that gap between investors and realtors is that lack of education on both sides. And one thing that would be, hopefully you are touching on that, is how do you train a realtor? So like if you have a relationship, or if an investor wants to have a really great advocate in the real estate world and they don't want to get their license, well, then take some real estate agents, 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever, and teach them. Because I think that's part of, we don't learn a lot of this stuff in school, right? We don't learn these things. So learning how to get into the mind of an investor so that we can be a stronger advocate for you guys is something that I think is needed.
No, I could not agree more. And really the thought process around creating a roundtable was to open up this dialogue, which I love the candid nature in both of your responses, because I want some feedback, because I do kind of sit on both sides of the aisle in terms of, we, flip a couple of hundred houses a year. So we're very much investor, have to go buy. But on the same side, we have a real estate brokerage. So we're seeing the agents that are working with buyers and sellers all the time. So that, sometimes I get so immersed on both sides, I can kind of flip the brain. But I think there's an education needed for people that have not stepped over to the other side of the aisle, and would love to be a part of educating. What do you see some of the mistakes, Stephen, that investors are making in real estate? Rookie investors that you are talking with, are there some pet peeves or things that you think, oh my goodness, here we go, or telltale signs of someone that's not going to make a successful investor?
Yeah, and I try to allude to being very realistic about the returns the Kansas City market can provide on an introductory call with them, right? I mean, what's their cash on cash return preference, right? If they're being more aggressive, are they okay with the C-class areas? If they're just looking for wealth preservation and appreciation, maybe at end of the year tax write-off, are they okay with that A/B class that maybe just break even? So trying to really allude to that on like an intro call. I think a big thing, people are just very hesitant, right? If they're out of state to make an investment, 500, 800 miles away, it is a trust thing, kind of like you were talking about, letting us provide the property management, having our contractors go in there. And so I think just rookie mistakes is, either underestimating rehab budgets, and then just, trying to analyze the maintenance and the repairs that may go on, right? Everything may be in great shape, but that once that water heater goes out, I mean, that may be a year of cash flow for you.
Gone.
And so, just trying to be very real.
What I'm hearing from you is, that the over confidence in a pro forma and not having enough money in savings to realize, there's a pro forma, which is, hey, if everything is perfect, and then there's a reality, which is, something a little bit behind that.
And I think with the rise of social media and, a lot of real estate gurus per se that pop up and, they're providing training courses, or you can pay for their, course to some degree. It's not a get rich quick scheme, right? It's a get rich for sure, in my opinion, over the long haul, if you do it right. But, we're not expecting to get rich overnight with, minimal cash flow on some of these deals. So
no, I think, Kansas City gets thrown into the cash flow, the 4 pillars of real estate: cash flow, appreciation, depreciation, and the ability to scale with leverage. I think too many people focus on the cash flow, and then they see Kansas City, oh, well, I can get appreciation and depreciation in California, but I can't get cash flow. They come to Kansas City thinking it's going to be just cash flow positive from day one, not realizing that's really not what you buy. It will be extremely cash flow positive in the future once you have it paid off. You will not have to put money in. It'll be relatively cash neutral now. But the idea that you're going to buy a rental property and suddenly all your problems are solved is something we need to nip in the bud pretty early.
Yep.
Anita, let's flip from the buyer's side. When you are working as an agent, what do you see some of the mistakes from a real estate agent's perspective in trying to help their clients? Are there things that rookie agents that don't have the experience of someone like you, what are they making? How could we help them do better at their job?
I think education is probably one, just learning more, but also surrounding themselves with a team of like-minded agents and people who are wanting to further and become excellent. I mastermind with agents on an app called Clubhouse every morning, and we talk for a couple of hours early in the morning about what's happening in their market, what's happening with contracts, and comparing and contrasting marketing ideas and what people can do to help leverage what they have in that moment. And I think that a lot of new agents come in and they don't have that, and they don't realize that it is hard work to lead generate. It is hard work to build those relationships. It's hard work to understand not just the contract, but what do you do in the process of it all. And so building the systems set in place from step one, when that first client calls you, to all the way to even after closing. I do what's called an hourglass, where you get the funnel and then you've got the transaction part in the center, but then the fun begins when you get to hang out with me for the rest of your life, right? So I think those are rookie mistakes as far as how they can do it. And also too, really making sure that their circle of influence and their people are in their database.
Know what they're doing. Tell people what you're doing.
Right, tell people. So, I mean, I used to be the secret agent. I mean, if you look at my social media 6 years ago, 5 years ago, people didn't even know I was an agent. I thought that I was bugging people. Like, if I mentioned something on social media or whatever, I would come across too salesy, But we have to understand that we're salespeople. Like, we're salespeople. I mean, even you as a guy, and you go to meet your wife, you're selling her on why you're a good investment. So we're salespeople in every aspect, right? It's just we have to understand that it's okay to get out there and not be the secret agent, and that's what social media has done for me.
So one of the books that really influenced me at an early age, you will 100% have read it, is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? So you have the cash flow quadrant, people working on the left side of the quadrant as a self-employed or a W-2 employee, transacting. Making money, paying taxes, making money, paying taxes. Then there's that right side of the quadrant, which we reference, which is the business owner or the investor earning passive income. I read this book and my brain was just, like light bulb moment for me. And I've always tried to operate and get onto the right side of the quadrant. Why do you think more realtors are not utilizing this greatest asset that we're selling to everybody else and actually investing themselves? Why are they not trying to become investors? I don't know. I'd love to know the percentage, and I've done a lot of research and I have not been able to come up with a good stat, but I would guess that I'd be being polite if I said 30% of realtors actually invested themselves in real estate.
If that.
Yeah. So again, I'm probably throwing commercial real estate brokers into that as well, which, so maybe if you look on the residential real estate sales side, call it 20% of realtors. So if it's the 80-20, what are we doing wrong? And we've kind of hit on it maybe with education, but Steve, why are people not investing in real estate more?
Oh man, I wish I had the direct answer to that. I think, once again, going back to how we started the conversation of, I was investing myself before I got licensed. Most people, at least how I pictured it, are doing it the opposite way, right? They get licensed. It's their day job, right? That's how they make their monthly active income. I think they just get so involved in that they forget that they should be trying to build some sort of wealth themselves. I think they just get caught up in the day-to-day to try and make those big commissions, do the $1 million volume months. They just forget that they should probably be buying some deals themselves. That's my thought. Does it
almost come back to, I bring it all the way back almost to the school system. Like, are we not doing enough financial prep and financial education? And then it just becomes people looking at social saying, I want to be like that guy. And it's definitively keeping up with the Joneses. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Anita?
So if I were to be candid,
please, that's what we're there for.
I would agree that there's a lot less, and I think maturity one is it. But when I started, my husband and I were, and I'll just share my story. We were very naive, and we were almost greedy. And about a year into my real estate career, we started trying to invest. And so we met this investor here in town, and he owned about 150 doors at the time. I was flipping hundreds. And he preyed on us because he, I think, saw that we were naive and stupid and hungry and a little greedy. And we were just that.
That's the type of praying I don't like. The E, not the A, right?
Right. And so then he sold us a multi-unit dwelling. I think it had 5 units in it, like 3 different single-family homes, all with the snap of a finger. Told us they were great, and it was all a numbers game. and we didn't even go look at the houses. He said, no need to look at the houses. I mean, this was where our mindset was. And I take full responsibility for that.
Yeah.
Right? And that revolutionized my mindset. It took me down a path that took years of recovery because we lost it all. We got a phone call in the first hard rain. Hey, our basement is flooded. So my husband was shot vacuuming sewer out of the basement all night long. Heater went out. The guy never was able to be heard from again. And it was all, and we owed, it was when things were really challenging in the financial market. We probably owed X the properties were worth X. We owed 3 times that. And it took us years to recover mentally from that. And so I think that I don't speak alone. I think I speak for a realm of agents that see it happening, and they might have tried at one point and made a big mistake and then have years to recover. So since then, yeah, we're recovering. We've purchased since then. And now I'm working on doing some remodeling myself, but it takes that risk factor.
Oh, that's scar tissue for sure. Yeah. Scar tissue. I mean,
Yeah.
that doesn't go away overnight.
And so I think that the trust factor is real, whereas, you have, like you mentioned it before, where there's this wedge between the two, investors and realtors. And so how do we develop that trust? And how do you develop partnerships that are going to, like for me, I'm, if I had somebody to say, Anita, that was just, this is not a great deal. This is not a great deal, but hey, let's partner on this one. That I think would revolutionize our industry, as if investors would actually work to partner. But there's also less investors and way more realtors, and so that's my story. I think that there's fear. You're right. We get so focused on our next transaction that we miss out on the opportunity of the wealth building side of it.
Very astute observation, and I'm a big believer in collaboration over competition. I feel like if there's ever a chance to JV or joint venture or partner on an opportunity, rather than just saying no, take that opportunity and learn and educate together. I think too many people think it's either or and forget the word and. And I would love to be that, that source for collaboration and that kind of community. I think that the other thing I would lean on is, I think for too long, the real estate industry has done a poor job of attracting investor clientele because it's all DIY. It's, you've got to find a realtor who will bring you a quality deal. Then you've got to go, they say at the closing table, hey, great, bring me, when you want to buy another house, let me know. But then you've got to go find contractors to rehab it. Then you've got to find a property management company. And then you've got, and sometimes people are doing all this themselves. It's extremely intimidating. And, turnkey providers that actually allow investors to invest passively are really a thing that's come along more recently. But I think we need to be getting the voice out there that, look, even if you don't want to take on the responsibility yourself, partner with a professional that's been down the road, that's made the mistakes so that you don't have to, so that you can enjoy the benefits of it. Because real estate agents have the greatest tax advantage over anyone investing in real estate, because we get to take 100% of the deductions on our taxes in year, which is one of the great benefits of the tax code that our regular investors that are dentists and doctors and lawyers are not able to do. So we'll have to do a deep dive. Pete would make a note to do on a tax
which I love
table, because that's a deep dive. There's so many benefits to real estate in general. So one final question then, along those lines, real estate has done a poor job. How can we get better? What would be things that you'd like to see coming out, from this show and others that would help better align investors and realtors?
That's a good question. I mean, it's just trying to create a simple process and system for them, right? I mean, on our transactions with our out-of-state clients, we're trying to make it very hands-off for them and very stress-free, right? They are typically working their day jobs, very busy. They're looking to just place capital. So, we're acting 100% as the boots on the ground here. So they trust us to, walk through the property, do the final walkthrough, make sure it's all good. In the middle of the winter, we're helping out with, potential frozen pipes, making sure utilities are turned on. Just doing not daily, but weekly checks if needed for some of our clients. And then, of course, placing property management. So it is a hands-off approach.
So professionalism, transparency, communication, right?
Yeah, I could add to that too. For me, bridging the gap between, okay, what, you say you do this day in and day out. You work with investors day in and day out. I work with the end user, basically the buyer. What I know that I can't speak eloquently yet about the numbers. So like, where, as far as like the education is concerned, I'm a bit dangerous at it, but I don't feel like I am 100% confident enough to say, okay, Mr. Investor, here is what rent is in this area. Here is what it's going to cost, to get it all fixed, like contractor numbers. I don't know all of the ins and outs of that. So maybe utilize one of your properties. Call me in, walk through it, say, this is where I find the numbers, show realtors your system. And that way they're educated to know when they're out there in the field, where the numbers are. And when they're out there, they can tell you if it's a good offer or not, or a good opportunity or not. I mean, yeah, from a standpoint of we should know that, but since we don't do it every single day, there are times where we lack in that ability to explain it eloquently,
And it's, like you alluded to, the Purple Bible, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, just, literature like that is kind of how I got started. Resources like biggerpockets.com. That's what taught me everything I know, I like to think. And then just the rise in podcast. Even TikTok right now, you could get on there and there's people, showing how to break down numbers and whatnot. So I think, if you want to be an investor, just digging into it, really putting your foot forward and getting into the literature and studying the game, honestly.
The thing I've found, Anita, is that the more my realtors become well-versed on the investor side, they become far better realtors for the end user residential listing and buying clients as well. Because to your point, even when you're working with a homeowner that can walk in and say, oh, I don't want to, look, there's a leak right there. I'm not going to buy this house. You're like, oh, no problem. That's just a grading issue. And, blah, blah, blah. And you can, in the same way, some people have gone down that road already, but even estimating, forecasting, what a property may return as far as an ROI, definitely education should be something that we focus on. And
it's constantly evolving. Obviously, 2 years ago, rates were in the high 3s, low 4s. But, prices were going over asking. Now, we're in the mid to high 7s, and you may be able to negotiate prices. So trying to weigh the pros and cons of that. And some parts of it, the whole transaction, contractors are constantly evolving, right? Who can you trust and who does good work? Building materials have increased, so constantly evolving, right? An HVAC replacement used to be $3,500, $4,000. Now you're looking at $6,000. So just trying to stay in touch with like accurate prices and stuff.
And negotiating is involved. Evolving too. I had a buyer client this weekend. We competed with 11 other people.
Wow.
So you think that it's getting to be some.
Wait, this is winter of 2023.
And I know. And we lost the bid by just a hair. We were number 2 in 12. So it's one of those things where it's almost like every week things change.
Absolutely.
So,
well, that's a wrap. I want to take a special time to thank both Stephen May and Anita Cordell for coming on the show today. The inaugural show for the KC Realtor Roundtable. Remember, watching on YouTube, to hit the notification bell, like, subscribe. We don't want you to miss out from our experts that we bring in. So to our expert panel today, Stephen and Anita, thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll see you guys next time.